Is RO DBT for you? There's a quiz under this tab. So circle the number or write down, keep chicken scratches. 1, the description is a good match for me, very poor actually. Up to 5, it's a very good match for me. For example, my emotional experiences often feel minimized. If that's really true, I would mark it a 5. If it's not true, hardly at all, then I would mark a 1. And you would count up for all of these as an aggregate, this emotional awareness list. So there seems to be a mismatch between my inner and outer experience. I have problems that are due to factors outside of my control. There are biological explanations for the problems I have. It's difficult to distinguish between my emotions and bodily sensations. I often minimize strong emotions, distress, pain, excitement, both in public and private. If asked, I will say I'm fine, regardless of how I'm really feeling. I tolerate distress very well. If I have an angry outburst, it's most likely only in private. My moods are, for the most part, very stable and have very little variability or contrast in intensity. It's hard to be spontaneous or silly. It's hard to laugh at myself. I prefer to play structured games. So thinking of that whole category of emotional awareness, did that describe you very poorly or very well or somewhere in between? Emotional expression. I mask my inner feelings or show emotional and facial expressions different than to what I am feeling. I strive to keep up appearances and be seen as in control. I try to be very social. I can keep a fake smile on. Masking my emotions is a sign of maturity. It's hard to disclose personal information. I'm uncomfortable disclosing personal information. Following descriptions, good match for me. Is it very poor, very good, or somewhere in between? How much you express your emotions. Interpersonal relationships. Following descriptions are a good match for me. 1, very poor, to 5, very good. I am cautious in relationships. Achievement, social recognition, performance, and appearance are considered highly important. Avoiding feelings of vulnerability, humiliation, or embarrassment take precedence in relationships. Sometimes it's easier to abandon a relationship than face conflict. I strive to appear socially desirable, civil, polite, or affable in order to avoid social disapproval. Rules of etiquette govern social norms or actions, even when the rule does not make sense for a given context. It's easier to feel better about myself when I see those less socially desirable. I find myself holding on to grudges or past hurts and experience periods of high envy or bitterness. I believe that love or genuine caring is either false or impossible. So those as a whole category describe you poorly or well. Empathy and validation skills. I often spend a lot of time rehearsing appropriate responses and carefully plan what I might say or do prior to social engagements. Expressions I make of caring are ruled by a sense of obligation and duty. It's a struggle to understand another person's perspective. Only an outstanding performance is worthy of validation. It's hard to say yes to new ideas or suggestions. I find it difficult to compliment, praise, or help others. I find it difficult to be praised or helped by others. I desire recognition from others for my self-sacrifices and for following the rules, but I don't want anyone to know I want this. It's very hard to make mistakes. I generally apologize because it's a socially appropriate thing to do, or to avoid social disapproval. When I offer advice to others, I feel frustrated and resentful when they don't value my advice. I feel uncomfortable with emotional displays. How well did that category fit you? Receptivity. I find spontaneous and uncontrolled activities very difficult. I try to avoid novel situations and situations where I could be the center of attention. I need structure and control. I chastise myself after making a perceived mistake. I plan for possible negative situations or eventualities. I keep things in case they may be needed in the future, even when it's clear I don't need them. I do more than what is necessary in order to make sure that I'm not seen as incompetent. I try to focus on fixing problems rather than avoiding them. It's hard to sit with a problem. I can end up with impulsive fixes so I can immediately relieve my anxiety. It's hard to alter a planned course of action prior or revise a prior solution, even if circumstances have changed or there's new feedback. And finally, openness. I will agree with something to avoid criticism. I will hide my true feelings to avoid critical feedback. I will disagree with an opinion over minor inaccuracies. I will answer a question with a question if I'm criticized. I will pretend I didn't hear a comment if I'm criticized. I will be vague if I'm criticized. I'll criticize or minimize my accomplishments before someone else can. So how well did that fit you? From poorly to well. So totaling your number for emotional awareness, emotional expression, interpersonal relationships, empathy and validation, receptivity, and openness. If you only has less than 6 points or less, you don't probably fit, and you probably felt that. If your score is 7 to 12, then RODBT has something to offer you and you may likely see improvements in your daily life. 16 to 24, RODBT definitely has something to offer you, and more than 24, RODBT is what you've been looking for a long time.